Somewhere in Vermont, in a backyard smaller than a tennis court, someone is harvesting a crop that sells for more per gram than gold. No farm, no tractor, no permit nailed to a barn door. Just a handful of raised beds and about 2 weeks of work in the fall. 100 years ago, this was not exotic. Half the trades in this video were ordinary skills your great-grandparents did without a second thought. They ran these operations in a shed out back, sold locally, and made a real living from skills that fit in a backyard. Then the factories came, the supermarkets came, and one by one these skills quietly slipped off Main Street. Not because they stopped paying, because nobody was left to do them. 6 of them still clear real money from a backyard, a shelf, or a spare corner. And the last one is the one that sells for more than gold. Trade 6 is the one that sounds like a joke until the price tag comes into focus. Worm castings. That is the polite term for worm manure, the dark, crumbly material a worm leaves behind after processing kitchen scraps and cardboard. Gardeners call it black gold, and they are not being poetic about it. A tablespoon feeds a houseplant for 2 full months. Before the 1950s, before the bag of blue chemical fertilizer showed up on every hardware shelf, worm beds were common practice. Then, synthetic fertilizer got cheap, and the whole craft quietly disappeared. Nobody bothered with worms when a bag solved everything faster. What happened next was predictable in retrospect. The organic movement came back around, and people started caring about soil biology. Synthetic powder kills off the bacteria and fungi that make soil alive. And now there is a growing line of buyers who specifically refuse it. Small bags of quality castings at a farmer's market move for around $5 a pound, and packaged retail bags run $15 to $30 each. Sell in bulk to serious buyers, and the rate lands around $1 to $3 a pound, or a few $100s per cubic yard. The worms themselves are a second income stream. Composting red wigglers sell for $20 to $40 a pound from people starting their own bins. There is also a third product, worm tea, the liquid runoff from the bin, which sells by the gallon for $10 to $25. One bin sells the castings, the worms that produce the castings, and the liquid that drains from the bottom. 3 products, 1 setup. The only thing purchased was the worms once. Everything else is fed with coffee grounds, vegetable peels, and shredded newspaper. Who buys? Organic nurseries, boutique soil companies, vineyards, orchards, and high-end indoor growers treating soil like a science. Experiment. That last group does not blink at premium prices because a few dollars of castings protects a crop worth far more. A colony of about 2,000 worms produces roughly 7 pounds of castings per month, and the colony doubles itself on a diet of garbage. A stack of bins fits in a garage, a shed, or a spare corner of a basement. No outdoor space, no zoning concern, no license required. Patience on the first harvest is the honest catch. A few months before there is enough to sell, and the bin needs basic moisture management. That is about the worst of it. No license to keep worms. No zoning board that cares about a bin in a garage. Trade 5 is heirloom seed saving, a skill that made seeds travel across oceans in coat pockets and inside letters for centuries. Every gardener was once also a seed saver. Grow the tomatoes, let the best ones go to seed, dry them on the windowsill, plant again next spring. The extras traded with neighbors, and the seeds were just part of the deal of growing anything at all. Then hybrid seed companies arrived with F1 varieties that grow beautifully once and produce nothing useful if seed is saved from them. Suddenly, new seed was required every single season, and the skill of keeping a variety alive from year to year stopped being necessary. In Decorah, Iowa, a couple started Seed Savers Exchange in 1975 after a grandparent handed them German tomato and morning glory seeds. That family had carried those varieties over from Bavaria in 1870 and kept them alive for generations through careful annual saving. They did not want the varieties to die out, so they built a network that now safeguards more than 20,000 heirloom varieties. The hunger that built Seed Savers, people wanting the rare tomato, the purple bean, the corn their grandmother grew, is a live market. Every time a gardening boom rolls through, the interesting varieties sell out first, while the boring ones sit on the shelf. The rare ones with a name and a story disappear in days. The ordinary ones nobody fights over. A handful of distinctive varieties is all that is needed. An heirloom tomato with a story, a chili nobody finds in any catalog. Grow them out, let them seed, clean and package the seed, and sell packets online or at markets. A single plant throws off hundreds or thousands of seeds. The raw material multiplies itself for free every growing season. Packets sell for a few dollars each, and the cost to fill one is pennies. The margin is the kind of number that does not look real. A packet labeled red tomato is worth $1. That same seed labeled with its variety name, origin, and history is worth $3. The story is the product and heritage carries a markup that generic genetics never can. A few containers on a balcony, a small bed, a sunny fence strip. This is stewardship of a few varieties, not farming. Beans, tomatoes, peppers, and lettuce self-pollinate naturally, making them the beginner's path to clean sellable seed in the first season. Trade 4 is the fastest money on this entire list. Not the biggest, but the fastest by a significant margin. The old market gardener who grew vegetables on the edge of town and carted them fresh to households every morning is mostly gone. Standardized produce trucked in from 1,000 miles away killed the local grower who could not compete on commodity pricing. But there is a slice of that old trade that came roaring back, and restaurant chefs are driving every dollar of it. Microgreens, tiny, intensely flavored versions of vegetables and herbs harvested at 1 to 2 weeks old. The little ribbons of radish and pea shoot and sunflower seen piled on a restaurant plate do not ship well and do not travel far. A restaurant cannot easily source them nationally. They are too delicate. So they want a local grower, which means they want someone local. Microgreens sell for $25 to $50 per pound, and by the tray to restaurants at $25 to $40 per standard tray. A single tray costs only a few dollars in seed and growing medium to produce. The margin on each tray is real. Specialty varieties like amaranth, shiso, and colorful exotic mixes push $4 to $8 per ounce at premium buyers. The cycle is 7 to 21 days. Not seasons, not months, days. Which means the same shelf harvests multiple times per month. 40 trays per week at $30 each is $200 per week from a modest book of a few restaurant accounts and one market stall. Industry figures put a 500 square foot operation with its buyers established at $25,000 to $50,000 per year. One documented grower fit 144 trays into 60 square feet using vertical shelving. A spare room or a section of garage handles it. A few $100s covers startup, trays, shelving, a grow light, and seed. No soil acreage, no outdoor anything. This runs indoors year-round, regardless of weather. A snowstorm outside does not touch the harvest inside. Microgreens fall under cottage food rules, or fresh produce classification in most states. The lightest regulatory touch on this list. The honest catch is perishability. They do not sit, so buyers get lined up before the seeds go in the trays. Walk 3 chefs a free sample tray, get one to commit to a standing weekly order, and then seed to match that order precisely. Once a chef builds a pea shoot dish, they need those pea shoots every single week. A one-time sale becomes a subscription. Trade 3 is gourmet mushrooms. And the irony is that mushroom growing has an image problem that hides a serious opportunity. People hear mushroom farm and picture an industrial warehouse cranking out bland white buttons by the ton. That image is accurate for buttons. The commodity end of mushrooms is fully industrialized, which is exactly why the gourmet end got overlooked and stayed local. Oyster, lion's mane, shiitake, and king trumpet barely appear in industrial supply. They are more delicate, shorter shelf life, better fresh. Chefs want them. The functional food and medicinal mushroom market specifically wants lion's mane, and almost nobody local is growing them. Oyster mushrooms, the beginner workhorse, sell wholesale at $7 to $12 per pound and more at direct retail. Premium varieties like lion's mane and shiitake commonly clear $16 to $24 per pound when sold straight to chefs and market customers. A well-run room of just 500 square feet, a one-car garage, can gross between $80,000 and $180,000 annually, depending on variety and buyer. Oysters fruit in about 15 days from a colonized block. Shiitake takes 50 to 60 days. Running both keeps cash flowing continuously. Oysters for consistent cash flow, the premium varieties for the fat margins. A smart grower keeps both cycles going simultaneously. The value add layer pushes margins even further. A pound of fresh lion's mane, dried and powdered into a tincture, multiplies in value. Sold to the supplement market chasing focus and brain health, that same pound commands several times its fresh weight price. Ready-to-fruit grow kits for hobbyists turn a few dollars of substrate into a $25 gift product. One mushroom, 4 different revenue streams. Cultivated mushrooms grown from known spawn are classed as fresh produce in most states. No special permit required. That is a real legal advantage over wild foraged mushrooms, which require certified expert inspection in many states before any sale. A basement, garage, spare room, or shipping container works. Mushrooms need humidity, the right temperature, and clean air, not sunlight. They grow on sawdust and straw, not soil. No land in the most literal sense of the word. The honest catch is contamination. Green mold wants the same conditions the mushrooms want, so cleanliness is the core skill. Losing a crop almost always traces to mold, not bad luck. Wipe down surfaces, keep air moving, and the success rate climbs fast. The spent blocks when finished go straight into the compost pile, or into the worm bins from Trade 6. Nothing goes to waste. Trade 2 smells better than anything else on this list, and might be the most beautiful small business running from a backyard. Lavender was once a working plant, not a decoration. The apothecary, the soap maker, and the herbalist all grew it as a production crop. It went into linens to keep them fresh, into salves for skin, into the medicine chest as both treatment and preventative. Then synthetic fragrance arrived. A chemist could fake the smell of lavender for a fraction of the real plant's cost. The real plant got pushed out of the supply chain and became something seen in gardens, not something grown for a living. In Sequim, Washington, a small town in the rain shadow of the Olympic Mountains, lavender saved a dying farm economy in the 1990s. While Seattle drowns under 150 rainy days a year, Sequim gets about 16 inches of rain total, conditions that rival Provence, France. When local dairy farms collapsed and farmland disappeared, the community turned to lavender and built an entire regional economy around it. A growers' association, a summer festival, and a dozen farms grew up around a forgotten crop that nobody had thought to plant commercially. That festival now draws thousands of visitors every July. A dying agricultural economy, reinvented on something anyone with a sunny patch can grow. One harvest from one plant becomes a dozen different products: dried bundles, essential oil, sachets, soaps, salves, and culinary buds. Lavender lemonade and ice cream at farms that lean into agritourism add another revenue layer from the same plants. A bunch of fresh lavender is a few dollars. Distill that same lavender into essential oil, and the value multiplies significantly. Essential oil is concentrated and shelf-stable. It does not wilt, it does not expire next week, and it ships without refrigeration. Dried stems bundled for weddings command seasonal premium pricing from florists who need them during the outdoor wedding months. Soap and candle makers, who want real oil rather than synthetic fragrance, are a consistent wholesale buyer across every region. Agritourism is its own income stream. People will drive an hour and pay admission to stand in a purple field and photograph it. Charging for the view of the crop is a business model that exists nowhere else on this list. Lavender prefers full sun and excellent drainage, and actually thrives in poor dry soil, the ground most people apologize for. The honest catch is the calendar. Year 1 is mostly planting and waiting, with income building significantly in year 2 and beyond. Once established, a lavender plant produces for years with very little maintenance. The work done once pays back every summer. Trade 1 is the one the video opened with, Saffron, the most expensive spice on earth, and the one that sells for more than gold. Saffron is the dried red thread from inside a specific crocus flower, and each flower produces just 3 of these threads. 3 threads per flower, picked by hand the morning they bloom, during a harvest window that lasts about 2 weeks in autumn. It takes roughly 70,000 flowers to produce a single pound of saffron, and hundreds of hours of hand labor to process them. There is no machine for this work. There has never been a machine for it. Which is why 90% of global supply comes from Iran. That labor cost dependency is exactly why almost nobody in America grows it. Everyone assumed it was impossible to do at home. Then Vermont happened. The University of Vermont established the North American Center for Saffron Research and Development. Researchers proved that saffron grows beautifully in cold northern climates, in raised beds, in small hoop houses, on a backyard scale. There are now an estimated 150 to 200 saffron growers in Vermont alone, a knowledge base built in under a decade. One farm in Stowe started in 2017, with corms ordered from the Netherlands, and a single raised bed to test the concept. His first harvest was 15 grams, which doesn't sound like much until the price per gram gets applied to that number. Saffron runs around $34,000 per pound at the high end of the wholesale market, at the premium American grade. The top American stigmas fetch $75 to $85 per gram. At $80 a gram, the spice in hand is worth more than the same weight in gold. That is not a metaphor. It is a direct price comparison between spot gold and premium saffron at current market rates. American-grown saffron commands that premium because most store-bought saffron is imported, sometimes years old, sometimes adulterated. A chef who can buy fresh, local, traceable saffron from a grower they can visit in person will pay the premium without hesitation. The honest number for a small, direct market grower is $1,300 to $2,000 per pound. The conservative version, not the top. Read that again. $1,300 to $2,000 per pound is the conservative estimate from a small backyard operation selling directly. By a wide margin, this is the highest value crop per square foot growable in a few raised beds on any property of any size. The corms multiply underground every year, throwing off daughter corms that become the following year's plants at no additional cost. Plant once, and every few years dig the bed, separate the multiplied corms, and replant a larger patch. Inventory compounds in the dark. Once dried properly, saffron stores for a long time in a sealed jar, unlike microgreens or mushrooms racing against a clock. Harvest in a 2-week sprint in autumn, dry it, and sell across the full year at whatever pace the market allows. The honest catch is exactly that harvest. Every flower must be picked by hand at dawn, and threads separated the same day. University of Vermont research measured approximately 23 minutes of work per 100 flowers, fiddly, intense, and entirely time-compressed. 2 weeks of careful handwork at sunrise for a crop that pays like this is the best trade on the table by any calculation. The question the title asks is whether $3,000 a month from a backyard is real, and the honest answer is that stacking makes it so. Microgreens running multiple harvests per month can approach it alone. Mushrooms from a single car garage can approach it alone. But the smart operators do not pick one and push it to the edge. They layer 2 or 3 that run on different clocks. Microgreens pay weekly. Mushrooms pay every couple of weeks. Seeds and saffron pay in a seasonal lump. Lavender builds over years. Layer them and the income smooths out. There is always something coming in. And a bad month for one is often a good month for another. That is not a hobby. That is a diversified small business with multiple revenue streams running from a property most people mow. The deeper connection between all 6 is that they feed each other with almost no outside input required to keep the system running. Spent mushroom blocks and failed microgreen trays go into the worm bins. The worms convert that waste into castings. Castings fertilize the seed plants, the lavender beds, and the saffron beds. Nothing gets thrown away from any part of the system. Every trade's garbage becomes another trade's raw material. It is not 6 businesses. It is one small ecosystem in a backyard. The byproduct of one thing pays the input cost of the next, which is the part a factory farm or national supplier cannot replicate. It cannot be local by its nature, it cannot be fresh from across the country, and it cannot carry a grower's name and story. These trades did not fall off Main Street because they failed. They fell because convenience replaced them. The people quietly picking them back up are finding out the money never actually left. It was waiting for someone to show up. The place to start is not all 6 at once. That path leads to 6 mediocre setups and no income from any of them. Pick the one that matches what already exists. A dark garage and tolerance for detail points toward mushrooms. A sunny strip of dirt with good drainage points toward lavender or saffron. A spare shelf and 2 or 3 restaurants nearby points directly toward microgreens. The goal on day 1 is not to build the whole ecosystem. The goal is to make the first $100 from something grown or produced personally. That first 100 changes how a backyard looks. It stops being a yard and starts being a workshop with real production value. Take that first profit and buy the worms, or the second shelf, or the corms, and the thing compounds from there slowly. Nobody making real money from any of these started with all 6 running. They started with 1 done badly and got less bad at it. These trades do not collapse when more people discover them because they are local by their very nature. The chef in town needs a grower in town. The saffron buyer wants the jar with a local name picked 20 minutes away. There is no national winner here. There is only each zip code, the buyers inside it, and whether someone bothered to show up. Someone running the exact same trade 3 states away is not competition. They are proof the trade works wherever it gets tried. What gets purchased by starting is not a yacht. It is a buffer, a month when the main paycheck wobbles and the mushrooms still sold. It is the quiet knowledge that money can come from dirt, patience, and a skill no employer can eliminate through a layoff. A century was spent trading that kind of security away for convenience. A corner of the weekend can start earning it back. Drop a comment naming which of these 6 your family used to do, or which one surprised you most. Every comment shapes what comes next. If this opened a different way of looking at whatever outdoor or indoor space is already available, subscribe and hit the bell. Forgotten trades did not disappear because they stopped working. They disappeared because nobody was left doing them. The people who start this week are the ones who figure out that the barrier was never the land, the permit, or the money. The barrier was always just starting, and the people who clear it are the ones who pick one thing this week instead of waiting. Worm tea applied as a foliar spray directly onto microgreen trays replaces purchased liquid fertilizer with 0 added cost. The microbial activity in worm castings also suppresses fungal disease in growing media, a natural protection for mushroom competitors. Red wiggler worms sourced once will supply every future bin started from that original colony without any additional purchase. Vermicomposting documentation on social media consistently draws high engagement because the results photograph dramatically well. Photographing the color and texture difference between plants grown with castings versus without is its own marketing content. Heirloom seed packets with handwritten labels and variety history cards sell at a measurable premium over plain paper envelopes. Building a mailing list of seed customers creates a pre-order system where next season revenue arrives before anything gets planted. A seed library membership model at $20 to $40 per year creates predictable recurring revenue from an inventory that costs seeds to maintain. Trading varieties with other seed savers also expands the catalog without purchasing new stock from any commercial supplier. Microgreen trays destined for compost after harvest can go directly to worm bins rather than an outdoor pile. Worm bins process microgreen root mats efficiently and return finished castings within weeks of receiving the spent trays. Building a chef relationship starts with a free sample delivered in person. One tray that arrives warm and fresh is the entire pitch. A standing weekly order from 2 restaurants covers the overhead of the entire microgreen setup before any market sales are counted. Oyster mushrooms growing on straw bales positioned along a fence line produce in outdoor conditions during appropriate seasons. Spent straw from fruited mushroom bales decomposes into a soil amendment that improves any raised bed it gets worked into. Lion's mane, mushroom tincture. Made at home requires only alcohol, dried mushroom, and thyme. No special equipment beyond a jar. The functional supplement market for lion's mane is expanding rapidly, and local fresh-dried product commands trust that imported cannot. Lavender planted along walkways and property edges serves as both a production crop and a landscaping element that adds property value. A small copper pot still for essential oil distillation costs $100 to $300 and processes fresh lavender into concentrated oil in hours. Lavender essential oil distilled in small batches with a named farm of origin sells at a premium over imported commodity oil. Saffron corms ordered from a reputable Netherlands supplier typically arrive in summer for fall planting in well-drained amended beds. A simple cold frame over a saffron bed in northern climates extends the growing window and protects emerging corms from early frosts. Saffron threads dried at low temperature in a food dehydrator within hours of harvest preserve maximum fragrance and color quality. Selling saffron in small glass vials with handwritten labels and harvest date connects the buyer directly to the specific patch it came from. A single gram of premium saffron in a labeled vial represents roughly 150 flowers picked by hand. That story belongs on every package.